Rejected Omega shared her bread with a starving wolf. At dawn, the Alpha King came to her cabin. The first light of dawn painted the sky in soft strokes of pink and gold. Mist curled between the trees, clinging to the forest floor like a silent river. In the small, forgotten village at the edge of the kingdom, the cabins were still quiet, smoke drifting lazily from chimneys. Only one cabin, small and worn, had a faint movement behind its wooden shutters. Lyra, an Omega of the village, stirred in her modest bed. Her hair fell in tangled waves over her shoulders, and her hands, calloused from chores, rested on the thin blanket. She was awake early, as she often was, not out of habit, but because she felt a loneliness that even sleep could not erase. Rejected by her own pack, she had learned to live in silence, taking care of her small garden, tending to her few animals and keeping to herself. Yet in that quiet isolation, she had found a strange comfort. The world outside could be cruel, but her little cabin was hers. Stepping outside, she inhaled the crisp air, and her eyes immediately caught sight of movement near the tree line. A small, emaciated wolf limped toward her, its ribs showing beneath a coat as gray as the early morning mist. Its eyes, golden and cautious, watched her every step. Lyra's heart clenched. Wolves were feared in the village, thought to carry bad omens, but this one was clearly in need. Without hesitation, she bent down and retrieved a loaf of bread from her cupboard. It was hard, old, and small, but it was all she had to offer. Kneeling on the damp grass, she broke it into pieces and held it out. The wolf hesitated. Its eyes flicked to her hands, then back to her face. Slowly, it stepped forward and ate. "You're hungry, aren't you?" Lyra whispered. Her voice was soft, almost a song carried on the wind. She noticed the wolf flinched at her words, as if surprised to hear kindness instead of fear. For a few moments, the world felt like it had stopped. The sun's first rays touched her cabin, the leaves glimmered with dew, and the wolf ate quietly. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. There was something ancient, almost sacred in this small exchange. She did not know it yet, but the wolf had been searching for her, and not by chance. Hours passed. The wolf lingered near the cabin, resting its head on its paws but never leaving her side. Villagers, noticing her strange new companion, whispered behind closed doors. They avoided her cabin, giving her space, yet judging her silently. Lyra had long been labeled as unlucky, someone who did not belong fully in the pack's rigid hierarchy. Her affinity for creatures like wolves, her quiet defiance of village superstitions, and her soft, stubborn nature had made her an outcast. But Lyra did not care. Compassion, she believed, was worth far more than approval. That evening, as the sun sank behind the jagged mountains, Lyra prepared her small dinner. The wolf stayed at a respectful distance, watching, as if it understood the rituals of human life but did not yet fully belong to it. Lyra spoke softly to it, telling it stories of her childhood, her mother's kindness, and her father's departure when she was just a girl. The wolf tilted its head, listening as though it understood every word. Night fell. Lyra lit a single lantern and sat on the porch, her fingers brushing over the rough wood. The wolf lay curled on the grass, but every so often its golden eyes would meet hers. In that gaze, Lyra felt a pull she could not name, a sense that her life was about to change, though she had no idea how. Later, she dreamed. She was standing on a cliff that rose above a black, endless forest. At its center, a castle loomed, dark stone glinting in the silver light of a hidden moon. A figure watched her from the highest tower, tall, regal, wrapped in a cloak as dark as midnight. His eyes were sharp, piercing, and yet full of something she could not name. Sadness, longing, perhaps regret. She could not speak, could not move. The figure simply watched, and the air was filled with an invisible weight, as if the winds themselves were holding their breath. When she woke, dawn was breaking. Mist still lingered between the trees, and the wolf sat at the edge of the forest, watching her silently. She was about to prepare her morning chores when she heard it, a sharp, firm knock at her cabin door. Startled, she froze. No one came to her cabin uninvited. Her heart raced. Cautiously, she opened the door, and the sight before her stole her breath. A man stood there, tall and imposing. His cloak was black, embroidered with threads that glimmered faintly like starlight. His hair was dark, his eyes sharper than any blade she had seen. He looked at her as though he had been searching for her for years. Behind him, the forest seemed to pause, even the wind held still. "I am Kale," he said, his voice deep and commanding, "Alpha King of this kingdom. I have come for the wolf and for you." Lyra's pulse quickened. The wolf growled, low and warning, but did not move to attack. Its golden eyes flicked between her and Kale, as if silently urging her to trust him, yet remain cautious. You want the wolf," she stammered, instinctively stepping in front of the creature. Kale's gaze was unwavering, intense. "Yes, but not only that. I have been looking for the one who showed it kindness. You, Omega, are no ordinary girl. I will need you to come with me." Lyra shook her head, fear clashing with something deeper, a strange pull she could not ignore. I cannot leave. This is my home." Kale's expression softened for a fraction of a second, enough for Lyra to see the hint of pain beneath his sternness. Then it hardened again. "Home can be more than walls and a roof. I offer you safety and a choice. The wolf you fed is not ordinary. You are not ordinary. If you stay here, you may never know what is waiting for you." Lyra's mind raced. She had heard stories of the Alpha King, stories whispered by fearful villagers. A man of immense power, a ruler feared by kings and packs alike. Some said he was cursed, bound by a prophecy that could destroy him or save him, depending on the choices of one woman. The weight of those stories pressed down on her chest. The wolf moved closer, pressing its head gently against her leg. Its eyes met hers, and for a moment she felt courage bloom in her chest. She knew what she had to do. I will come with you," she said softly, and Kale nodded once sharply, acknowledging her decision. The journey began at first light. Kale led her through the forest paths she had never seen, dense with mist and shadow. Birds scattered at their passage, and the trees whispered as though alive, warning them of unseen dangers. Lyra stayed close, the wolf padding silently at her side, guiding them through hidden trails. During the journey, Kale said little, but his presence was a constant force. He moved like a predator, alert to every sound, every movement. Lyra, though fearful, began to notice glimpses of something unexpected, moments when Kale's gaze softened, when his hands moved gently to clear a branch from her path, when his voice carried the faintest trace of curiosity rather than command. "You saved the wolf," he said, finally breaking the silence. "That act, it should have meant nothing, yet it has drawn you into my path. Why?" Lyra looked down, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. Because it was hungry. I could not leave it to suffer. I try to help where I can." Kale's eyes studied her. There was something in her honesty, in her simple, unyielding compassion that unsettled him. No one in his world acted without motive, without caution. And yet here she was, brave, fragile, and yet stronger than most he had met. The wolf glanced at him, then at Lyra, its eyes almost knowingly. It was more than a wolf. It was a guardian, a bridge between the girl and the king, testing both of them. As they reached a small ridge overlooking a valley, Lyra saw, for the first time, the dark silhouette of Kale's castle. It was vast, perched atop a cliff, towers reaching like spires into the sky. The stone gleamed faintly under the moonlight still lingering from the night before, as though the building itself held secrets and power. Kale stopped and turned to her. "Tomorrow, you will meet my world. Tonight, rest. You will need strength." Lyra nodded, feeling both awe and fear. As she watched the wolf settle by her side, she realized something she had not expected. Her life was changing. Forever. And in the darkness, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a single chilling thought. Not all who follow the path of kindness are safe. Some paths demand sacrifice or love. The wolf lifted its head, and for a brief instant Lyra could swear its golden eyes were glowing, as if to say, "This is only the beginning." And so, at the edge of the cursed forest, under the watch of the first light of dawn, Lyra took her first steps toward a world she had never imagined. A world of kings, curses, and hearts tested by fire and fate. Cliffhanger, that night, as she tried to sleep beneath the stars, a shadow passed over the cabin. Kale's eyes gleamed outside the window, watching her. The wolf growled softly, and a whisper of prophecy filled the air. The Omega who fed the wolf will change the fate of the Alpha King, but at what cost? The forest around Lyra was alive with shadows. Trees towered like silent guardians, their branches entwining above to form a canopy that blocked most of the early sunlight. Mist clung to the ground, curling around roots and rocks, hiding small dangers beneath its soft veil. Lyra walked carefully, her fingers brushing over ferns and tree bark, while the wolf followed silently, its golden eyes alert. Kale, the Alpha King, led the way. His presence was like a storm held in perfect control, calm, yet impossible to ignore. Every movement he made was precise, every glance sharp, like he could see through the mist, the trees, and even through Lyra herself. Lyra's heart beat fast. She had never been this close to someone so powerful. The villagers' warnings echoed in her mind. He is feared by all. Even the bravest men bow before him. Beware the Alpha King. Yet, despite the fear, she could not help feeling drawn to him. There was a sadness in his eyes, a weight that whispered of secrets and lonely nights. The wolf padded alongside them, occasionally stopping to sniff the air. Lyra noticed that its movements were strange, almost purposeful. It seemed less like a wild creature and more like a guide. Sometimes it would look at Kale, then back at her, as if reminding them both that their paths were connected in ways they could not yet understand. They walked for hours. The forest grew thicker, and strange sounds echoed around them, the cry of distant birds, the rustle of leaves, the snap of twigs under unseen feet. Lyra's nerves were tense, but she forced herself to breathe slowly, to stay calm. "Why did you save it?" Kale asked suddenly, his voice cutting through the quiet. It was not harsh, but it carried weight like a stone dropped into a still lake. Lyra glanced at him, hesitant. "Because it was suffering. I could not leave it to die. I know I am small and weak, but I can help where I can." Kale's lips pressed into a thin line. Most people act only for themselves. They ignore what they do not understand or what does not benefit them. "You did not." He paused, his gaze studying her as if measuring something invisible. "That is why I am here." Lyra felt a shiver run through her. She had saved a wolf, and now she was walking through a forest with a king whose very presence seemed to bend the world around him. And yet she sensed that he was not entirely unkind. As the sun climbed higher, they reached a narrow ridge that overlooked a valley. From there, the sight of Kale's castle struck Lyra speechless. Perched atop a cliff, it rose like a dark jewel against the sky. Towers spiraled into the clouds, and the walls shimmered with an almost magical gleam. The castle exuded power, authority, and mystery, and it seemed alive, as though it watched the world below with quiet judgment. Kale stopped, turning to face her. "Tomorrow you will enter my world. Tonight rest here. The journey ahead will demand more than courage, it will demand trust, and that is rare." Lyra swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words. I will do my best," she said quietly. She could not have explained why, but a part of her wanted to prove herself worthy of this strange journey. The wolf moved closer to her side, pressing its head gently against her leg. Its eyes met hers, and she felt a strange sense of reassurance. Whatever lay ahead, she was not entirely alone. Night fell, and they made a small camp near a stream. Kale remained alert, scanning the forest with a sharp gaze, while Lyra tended to a small fire. She stole glances at him, noticing the way his hands moved with ease and precision, the way his shoulders tensed at every sound. There was power in him, but also restraint. a controlled force that could become danger or protection in an instant. "You are quiet," he observed, finally breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but there was curiosity there, something Lyra had not expected. I am thinking," she replied softly. "This forest is beautiful but also dangerous." He nodded. "Yes, beauty often hides danger. Just like people." Lyra's eyes met his, and she saw a flicker of something behind the storm of his presence, a hint of loneliness, a trace of longing. She looked away, unsure what to do with the feeling stirring in her chest. The night passed with uneasy calm. Lyra dreamed again of the castle, of shadowed halls and whispers of the past. In her dreams, Cale stood alone, gazing at a throne that was both a crown and a cage. She saw fear in his eyes, not of enemies but of himself. She woke with a start, the fire crackling and the wolf watching her intently. The next morning they resumed their journey. The forest began to thin, and the air grew colder. Lyra noticed strange markings on trees, symbols that glimmered faintly, almost like warnings. Cale explained little, only moving with greater caution. "Why does the wolf follow me?" Lyra asked quietly, glancing at the golden eyes beside her. "It is no ordinary wolf," Cale replied. "It is a guardian bound by ancient magic. It tests those who encounter it." "And it has deemed you worthy." Lyra's breath caught. "Worthy of what?" Cale did not answer immediately. He simply walked on, his eyes forward, sharp as the edge of a blade. Lyra realized that some questions could not be answered yet, not until the journey was complete. By late afternoon, they reached the base of the cliffs. The castle loomed above, more imposing with every step. Its walls were dark stone, shimmering in faint hues of silver and black. Flags fluttered in the wind and strange shadows moved along the towers, as if the building itself were alive. Cale stopped at the foot of the gates. He turned to Lyra, his expression unreadable. "The castle is dangerous to those who are unprepared. Within its walls, power is law, and fear can be as deadly as any blade. You must remember this." Lyra nodded, her heart pounding. She had felt fear before, but nothing like this. And yet there was a strange pull in her chest, a desire to step forward, to see what lay beyond those towering gates. The gates opened silently, as though expecting them. Inside, the castle was even more magnificent than she had imagined. Halls stretched like rivers of shadow and light, lit by flickering torches. The walls were carved with symbols, faces, and scenes of battles long past. The air was thick with history, magic, and power. Cale led her through the halls, his steps echoing. He showed no warmth, no softness, yet Lyra felt something in his presence, a strange reassurance, like he could protect her, even if he chose not to. "Why are you taking me here?" she asked again, unable to keep the question from her lips. Cale's gaze softened slightly, though only for a moment. "Because you are different, Lyra. You act with kindness not because you expect reward, but because it is right. That is rare. You may be the one who can change more than yourself. You may change me." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. His words were like a key turning in a lock she did not know existed. She wanted to ask what he meant, to understand the weight behind them, but she did not. Instead, she followed, feeling the first trace of something dangerous and thrilling stir within her, curiosity, trust, and perhaps the beginnings of something more. As night fell over the castle, the wolf settled at the threshold of her temporary chamber. Lyra watched it, realizing that it had led her here for a purpose greater than she could understand. Cale remained in the hall, silent, watching shadows dance against the walls. In the darkness, Lyra could hear whispers, the wind through the towers, the faint hum of the castle, and perhaps the silent heartbeat of the Alpha King himself. She realized that her life had changed forever. She was no longer simply an Omega rejected by her village. She was on a path that would test her courage, her heart, and her very soul. And yet, in that moment, she felt something she had never felt before. A quiet hope, fragile but real, that she could survive, and perhaps even thrive in a world ruled by kings, magic, and shadows. Cliffhanger. As Lyra drifted into sleep, the wolf lifted its head, its golden eyes glowing faintly. Outside the castle, Kale stood on a tower balcony looking down at her chamber. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes burned with a storm of emotion. Somewhere in the night, a whisper traveled on the wind. The Omega who fed the wolf has entered the castle. The Alpha King's heart is not yet ready, but it will be tested. The castle of the Alpha King rose above the cliffs like a shadow against the sky. Its walls were carved from dark stone, and its towers seemed to pierce the clouds themselves. Inside, the air was cool and heavy with the scent of old wood, smoke, and something faintly sweet and metallic, like magic lingering in the walls. Every step Lyra took echoed, carrying the weight of centuries, battles, and whispers of the past. Kale walked ahead, silent and purposeful, his cloak brushing against the floor. Lyra followed, her heart both anxious and strangely steady. She had never seen anything like the castle, halls adorned with tapestries depicting kings and queens, walls carved with strange runes, rooms filled with objects that hummed faintly with hidden power. It was beautiful, terrifying, and alive. The wolf padded silently at her side. Its golden eyes flicked toward her occasionally, as if reassuring her. Lyra was beginning to feel that the creature was more than a wolf, a guardian, a guide, and perhaps a messenger of fate. They reached a hall lined with high windows, the moonlight spilling across the floor. Kale stopped and turned to her. "You are not just an Omega," he said quietly. "You are different. The wolf you saved, it is bound to me as protector and judge. It does not accept lightly. That it accepted you means you are capable of something rare." Lyra swallowed hard. "Capable of what?" she asked. Kale's eyes darkened. "Capable of challenging the fate written for both of us." She felt her pulse quicken. His words were heavy with meaning, yet she did not fully understand them. Something about his tone, the way he looked at her, made her feel both small and important at the same time. She could not look away, and she did not want to. The wolf padded ahead, stopping at a massive wooden door carved with intricate symbols. It lowered its head, pressing against the door as if sensing something beyond. Kale pushed the door open, revealing a room bathed in moonlight. Inside, objects floated lightly, suspended by unseen forces. Books, scrolls, and artifacts shimmered with faint magic. "This is the Hall of Secrets," Kale said. "Here lies knowledge of the past, the present, and the shadows that bind me." He gestured for her to enter. "If you are to remain in this castle, you must understand that nothing here is ordinary." Lyra stepped inside carefully, her eyes wide. Every object seemed alive, glowing faintly, humming with an energy she could feel in her bones. She moved closer to a book that floated gently in the air. Its pages turned as if by their own will, revealing illustrations of wolves, kings, and strange symbols she did not understand. Kale watched her silently, his expression unreadable. "The wolf you fed is no ordinary creature. It has been bound to me for centuries, part of the curse that keeps this kingdom in balance. It tests all who come into my life, searching for a mate who can lift the darkness that binds me." Lyra felt a chill run through her. "A curse," she whispered. Kale's gaze softened just slightly. "Yes, a curse that isolates me. A curse that can only be broken by one with a heart pure and brave enough to see past the power, the fear, and the darkness I carry. That is why you are here, Lyra. The wolf chose you. I did not. Yet now I must see if you are capable of choosing me fully, without hesitation, without fear." Her chest tightened. She had always been afraid, even of ordinary life, yet there was something in his words that stirred courage inside her. A strange, impossible courage, born not from bravery but from connection. She had saved the wolf when no one else would, and now she was standing in the castle of the Alpha King, facing the man whose presence could command storms and silence armies, yet who seemed to need her as much as she feared him. Days passed. Lyra explored the castle cautiously, always under the watchful eye of Kale and the wolf. She learned the patterns of the halls, the hidden doors, and the rooms filled with magic. Every discovery revealed another layer of the kingdom's mysteries. A throne room where shadows seemed to whisper, a library where books rearranged themselves, and a tower where visions of the past and future appeared in mirrors and flames. Cale observed her constantly, silently judging, silently learning. He tested her courage in subtle ways, sending her down dark corridors, asking her to retrieve objects from rooms filled with protective spells, and observing how she reacted to whispers in the shadows. Each time, Lyra met his gaze with steady resolve, refusing to show fear she did not feel, and he was both annoyed and fascinated by her. "You are persistent," he said one evening, his voice low as they walked along a balcony overlooking the forest. "Few survive my tests with honesty and courage intact. Most fail because they allow fear to dominate them." Lyra looked up at him. "I am not sure I understand everything that is happening, but I know one thing: I will not betray you, or the wolf, or myself. I will do what I must." Cale's expression softened for a moment, just enough for her to see the human behind the crown. "You are stronger than you realize," he admitted. "Yet the curse I bear, it is not easily undone. It touches everyone around me, even those I care for." Her chest tightened. She did not know what to say. Her heart, which had been cautious, now stirred with empathy and longing. She could feel the loneliness behind his eyes, the weight of responsibility and isolation, and something inside her ached to reach him. One night, curiosity drew her to a tower she had not yet entered. The door was carved with runes that pulsed faintly with light, and the wolf padded silently beside her, its presence comforting. She opened the door and found a chamber filled with mirrors. Each mirror reflected not her image, but visions, possible futures, moments of joy, moments of loss. One mirror drew her closer, showing a future where she and Cale were separated by betrayal, the wolf standing silently between them. She gasped, stepping back. The wolf nudged her gently as if saying, "You have a choice. Choose wisely." Cale appeared in the doorway, his shadow long and imposing. "Curiosity can be dangerous," he said quietly, though there was no anger in his voice. "But it can also reveal truths. That vision you saw, it is not fixed. Futures can change, but only if courage and trust guide them." Lyra looked at him, her chest tight with fear and anticipation. "What must I do?" she asked. Cale's eyes softened. "You must see the darkness within me and choose to stay. You must face trials that will test your heart and your will. Only then can the curse be undone." The wolf circled them, golden eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Lyra reached out to it, feeling the strength and wisdom within the creature. It was more than a guardian. It was a test, a teacher, and a bridge between her heart and Cale's. Days turned into nights filled with lessons, small tests, and moments that made Lyra's heart beat faster. Cale began to reveal fragments of himself, stories of battles he had fought, decisions that weighed heavily on him, and moments of regret. Lyra listened, her empathy growing. She realized that beneath the power and fearsome reputation, Cale was a man who longed for connection, for someone who could see him, not just his title. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire and blood, Lyra found herself alone in the courtyard, the wolf at her side. She felt a presence behind her and turned to see Cale watching her. His expression was unreadable, yet his eyes held something deeper, a flicker of longing, a trace of hope. "You are learning quickly," he said softly, "and yet there is more you do not know. The curse touches not only me, but the kingdom itself. Your choices will ripple far beyond these walls." Lyra's hands trembled slightly, but she stood tall. "I do not understand everything, but I know I will do what I must. I will face whatever comes." Cale studied her, his eyes searching, and then slowly he nodded. "Good. That is all I ask for now. Courage, honesty, and the willingness to choose. That is what may save us both." The wolf growled softly, nudging her hand as if approving her words. Lyra smiled, feeling a strange sense of unity between herself, the wolf, and the Alpha King. And then, as the first stars appeared in the night sky, a shadow moved across the castle walls, an enemy approaching, drawn by the power of the Alpha King. Kale's eyes narrowed, his body tensing like a coiled spring. Lyra realized, with a jolt of fear and excitement, that the trials were far from over. Cliffhanger. As Kale prepared to face the approaching threat, the wolf growled and turned to Lyra, golden eyes shining with warning. A voice seemed to whisper in the wind. The Omega has passed the first trials, but the greatest challenges await. The curse stirs, and hearts will be tested by fire, shadow, and desire. Lyra's heart raced. She had stepped into a world far beyond her own, and now she was beginning to understand that courage and compassion were her greatest weapons, and that the bond she shared with the Alpha King and the wolf would decide not only their fate, but the fate of the kingdom itself. The castle shivered under the first whispers of the wind. Shadows twisted along the walls, and the air was heavy with a mixture of magic, history, and something unseen, almost alive. Lyra stood near the entrance to the main hall, the wolf at her side, her hands trembling slightly, but her heart steady. She had come far from the small cabin in the village, from the life she had once known. She had faced fear, darkness, and unknown trials, and now the greatest test awaited. Kale stood beside her, tall and commanding, yet his eyes betrayed a vulnerability few had ever seen. The curse that had shadowed his life for centuries pulsed through him, like a living thing, restless and dangerous. Yet in Lyra's presence it felt less threatening. He had taught her how to read the signs, how to trust her heart even when shadows fell, and for the first time he had allowed himself to hope. The wolf growled softly, low and warning, as if sensing an approaching danger. Beyond the gates of the castle, dark shapes moved, enemies drawn by the power that pulsed through the Alpha King, creatures of shadow that hungered for control, for chaos, for the downfall of all that Kale had built. Lyra felt fear, but she also felt courage. Courage born from trust, from compassion, and from the knowledge that she was not alone. Kale's hand brushed hers briefly, a silent acknowledgement of her readiness. "Stay close," he said quietly, "and remember what you have learned. Your heart is stronger than you know." The battle began suddenly. Shadows poured through the gates like smoke, twisting and writhing, striking at the castle walls. Kale moved with precision and power, his presence like a storm. Every strike, every motion, held authority and danger. Yet he did not move blindly. He watched Lyra, protecting her while testing her. He needed her to see the truth, that power without compassion was nothing, and that courage could turn the tide. Lyra stayed close, her hands steady, her eyes sharp. She had learned from the wolf, from Kale, and from her own heart. She guided herself through the chaos, helping the castle guards, moving with precision, and at times confronting the shadows directly. Her bravery was not the fearless kind of a warrior born into power. It was the bravery of the heart, the kind that comes from empathy, determination, and the refusal to turn away from what is right. The wolf leapt forward, fighting alongside her, its golden eyes bright and fierce. It moved with a grace and intelligence that reminded Lyra that this was no ordinary creature. It was the guardian, the judge, the link between her and Kale. Its presence reminded her that she was capable, that the trials were meant not to harm her, but to prepare her for the choice she would soon face. Kale noticed her skill, her courage, and the way her heart guided her every move. Each time she met his eyes, he felt a warmth he had not known in centuries. The curse that had shadowed his soul, that had made him feared and alone, flickered uneasily. It was being tested, challenged, and slowly, perhaps, broken. Hours passed. The shadows did not relent, but Lyra and Kale's bond grew stronger. They moved together as if guided by instinct, each understanding the other without words. The wolf darted between them, its golden eyes shining with encouragement. Every strike of the Alpha King was met with her guidance. Every test of courage was met with her strength. Finally, as the first light of dawn began to glow through the towers, the shadows faltered. Cale raised his hand, and with a controlled, decisive motion, he expelled the last of the darkness from the castle. The wind howled, the trees trembled, and then silence. Lyra stood beside him, chest heaving, sweat and ash clinging to her skin. The wolf stepped forward, golden eyes softening, and pressed its head gently against her leg. It was done. The trial had ended. The curse that had bound Cale for centuries, that had isolated him, that had tested all who approached him, began to dissolve. The bond he had feared, the connection he had doubted, was now possible. Cale turned to Lyra, his eyes dark and deep, but softened by something rare: gratitude, relief, and longing. "You have proven yourself," he said, his voice quiet but filled with weight. "Not just in courage, but in heart. You have faced what few could endure, and you have chosen wisely." Lyra felt tears prick her eyes. I did what I had to, not because of power or fear or prophecy, but because it was right." Cale stepped closer, the air between them charged with tension and unspoken emotion. "And in doing so, you have changed me, not just my life, but my heart." She looked up at him, her hands still trembling slightly. I never thought I would find understanding, or trust, or someone who sees me for who I am." He reached out, brushing her hair from her face, his touch gentle, careful, as if she were a treasure he had only just discovered. "I see you now, Lyra, and I will not let that go." The wolf growled softly, nudging her hand one last time. Then it stepped back, its form glowing faintly in the first rays of sunlight. Slowly, it lifted its head to the sky, golden eyes shining, and vanished into the dawn. It had done its duty, guided her, judged her, and now it left. Lyra felt a strange mixture of loss and triumph. The wolf had been her companion, protector, and teacher. Its departure left a space in her heart, but also a sense of freedom. She had faced the trials, endured the darkness, and now she was ready to step into her own place in the castle, in Cale's life, and in the kingdom itself. Cale took her hand, holding it firmly but gently. "The curse is lifted," he said, "not entirely by me, but by you. Your heart, your courage, your choice, they have freed more than just me. The kingdom itself will feel the change. Darkness does not fall so easily, but it has no hold where compassion guides the way." Lyra's heart swelled. She had feared the unknown, the power of the Alpha King, and the weight of destiny. But standing here, feeling his hand in hers, she understood the truth. Courage, kindness, and trust were stronger than fear, stronger than curses, stronger than shadows. For a moment the world seemed to pause. The sun rose over the mountains, spilling gold across the towers of the castle. The shadows retreated, leaving light in their place. Cale and Lyra stood together, hands intertwined, hearts beating in unison. "You are no longer the Omega who hid in a cabin," Cale said quietly, his voice carrying a mix of awe and admiration. "You are something far greater. You are my equal, my partner, my heart." Lyra felt warmth flood her chest. She had never imagined words like this could exist for her. Yet here they were, spoken by the man who had once been untouchable, feared by all, and now vulnerable before her. I never thought I could belong," she whispered, "but with you I feel that I can." Cale's gaze softened. "Then stay, not because of duty, not because of prophecy, but because you choose to. Choose me as I choose you." Lyra nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I choose you." The castle seemed to breathe with them. The halls, once heavy with shadows and secrets, now felt alive with possibility. The walls held no fear, only history that had taught them both lessons of courage, sacrifice, and love. Cale drew her close, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, and for the first time in centuries, he felt the weight of his curse lift completely. He was still Alpha King, still a ruler with power beyond measure, but now he was also a man who had found his heart, his mate, and his redemption. The wolf, though gone, had left its mark. Lyra's compassion had been tested, Cale's darkness challenged, and the kingdom itself had been touched by the bravery of one small, kind-hearted Omega. As the sun rose fully, painting the castle in golden light, Lyra and Kale stood together on the balcony. The world stretched before them, vast, beautiful, and alive. She leaned against him, feeling the strength and warmth radiating from his presence. "Together," he said softly, "we face what comes together." "Yes," Lyra replied, her voice steady, "together." And in that moment, as the first birds sang and the wind whispered through the towers, the Alpha King and his Omega, once rejected, once lonely, found not just safety and victory, but trust, love, and a bond that would endure far beyond shadows, curses, or time itself. The kingdom, the castle, and even the forest seemed to sigh in relief. The trials had ended. Darkness had been tested and defeated. Hearts had been opened. And a new dawn had begun, a dawn of courage, compassion, and love that would shape the world for generations to come.